What happens when an undercover CEO walks into his own dealership and overhears something that shakes him to his core? Daniel Carter gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup truck as he stared across the wide lot of gleaming vehicles at Carter's Trucks. From the outside, the dealership looked flawless. Row after row of polished trucks glinting under the sun. But Daniel wasn't fooled by appearances anymore. Sales were high, profits were solid, yet customer complaints had been quietly rising. Hidden fees, aggressive sales pressure, things Daniel had sworn would never happen under his name. He couldn't ignore the feeling anymore, that something was rotting from the inside out. That's why today, Daniel wasn't walking in through the back office as CEO. He was arriving as Mike Turner, a blue-collar worker looking to buy a work truck. Dressed in old jeans, a faded hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low, Daniel looked like any tired contractor with a tight budget. His luxury car stayed hidden 2 blocks away. His Rolex swapped for a $15 watch. Even the confident air he usually carried was tucked away, replaced by a weary slouch. As he crossed the lot, he noticed Rick Barnes, the dealership's new sales manager, eyeing him through the showroom window. Daniel knew Rick by reputation, ambitious, sharp, and increasingly rumored to be cutting corners. A young salesman practically jogged to meet him. "Hey there, welcome to Carter's Trucks. I'm Luke. What can I help you find today?" Daniel pitched his voice higher, rougher. "Name's Mike. Been saving up for a work truck. Need something tough but not crazy expensive." Luke's eyes lit up at the prospect of a sale. "Oh, we got plenty of options, Mike. What's your budget looking like?" Daniel scratched his chin. "About 35 grand. Luke nodded eagerly and started walking Daniel down the row of trucks, rattling off specs and towing capacities. Daniel watched closely, not just the trucks, but how Luke sold them. What he highlighted, what he glossed over. They stopped in front of a gleaming silver Ford F-150. "This beauty just came in," Luke grinned. "And lucky for you, it comes with our premium care package already included." Daniel's ears perked up. Included? That package was supposed to be optional, never forced into a deal. He kept his face neutral but made a mental note. After inspecting the truck and a quick test drive, Daniel agreed to start the paperwork. Luke ushered him into the cool, bright showroom. As Daniel sat down at the small desk, Luke started pulling up the contract on his screen. Then it happened. A voice, sharp, agitated, coming from the next desk over. Daniel froze, ears straining. "That's not what we agreed on." "Sir, the fees are all in the paperwork." He shifted in his seat just enough to glance sideways, without giving himself away. A man in a worn delivery uniform stood with papers clutched in his shaking hands. His voice cracked with desperation. "My wife and I saved for this. 2 years. We agreed on 32,000. Now you're telling me it's 35. Daniel recognized the defeated look in the man's eyes. He'd seen it once before, on his father's face, after they'd been swindled at a shady dealership decades ago. The sales manager, Rick Barnes himself, sauntered over with an oily smile. "Well, sir, the additional fees are standard procedure. Maybe you should have read the fine print." The customer's shoulders sagged under invisible weight. Daniel felt something twist in his gut. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a trap. And he'd just witnessed it firsthand. He glanced back at his own paperwork. Already, Luke was slipping in hidden fees, service packages, processing costs. The same trick. Daniel stayed calm, smiled like an overwhelmed customer. But inside, he made a silent promise. "This ends today." Daniel Carter didn't storm out. He didn't blow his cover. He finished the paperwork quietly, thanked Luke for his help, and left the dealership lot with the keys to his newly purchased truck. And a thick folder full of evidence. Back in his hidden rental car down the street, Daniel flipped through the contract pages carefully. Sure enough, $1,500 for an optional service plan he never agreed to. 895 claim in processing fees labelled as required, and though they weren't. A $299 customer loyalty surcharge that made no logical sense. He wasn't just witnessing isolated dishonesty. It was a system built to squeeze every penny from people who didn't know better, or who were too worn, down to fight. Daniel set the folder down in the passenger seat, his jaw tightening. This wasn't what Carter's Trucks was built on. His father had raised him to believe that business was personal. That trust, once broken, was nearly impossible to rebuild. And Daniel had just seen firsthand how far his business had drifted. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. Instead, he made calls. He contacted a private auditing firm, one he trusted implicitly, and hired them to send in mystery customers to several Carter's Trucks locations across the state over the next 2 weeks. He needed proof, not just here, everywhere. The results came back faster than he expected, and worse than he feared. Out of 10 locations had used some form of hidden fee manipulation. 5 out of 10 had forced premium packages without informing buyers. 3 out of 10 had managers directly instructing staff to bury the costs in excitement. And at the center of nearly all these cases, Rick Barnes. Daniel returned to the dealership 2 weeks later. This time, he didn't wear a hoodie. He didn't sneak in through the front. He walked through the back office in a tailored suit. His name, tag clipped firmly to his blazer. Daniel Carter, founder and CEO. The reaction was immediate. Salesmen scrambled. The front desk froze. And Rick Barnes, he tried to muster a smile. Too late. "Mr. Carter, what a surprise visit," Rick said, voice tight. Daniel said nothing. Instead, he dropped a thick folder onto the front counter with a heavy thud. "Surprise inspection," Daniel said. "Effective, immediately." Rick paled. Over the next 4 hours, Daniel and his auditing team went through every open deal, every customer file, every sales practice report. One by one, the lies unfolded. Hidden surcharges, fake service packages, manipulated contracts. All of it documented. At 5 p.m., with the staff assembled and the showroom doors locked, Daniel stood in front of the team. He held up the original customer's letter, the delivery worker who had saved for 2 years to buy his truck, only to be blindsided. "This," Daniel said, voice low but firm, "is what you cost us. Not just money, trust, reputation, our name." He locked eyes with Rick. "You're terminated, effective immediately." Security escorted Rick out while the staff watched, stunned. Daniel didn't stop there. He rolled out a new program, one he called Operation Clean Slate. Every customer who bought a vehicle in the last 6 months would have their contracts reviewed. Any hidden fees found? Refunded. No questions, no excuses. Because Daniel Carter wasn't just fixing paperwork, he was fixing the soul of his company. In the days following Rick Barnes's firing, a storm of rumors swept through the dealership and across Carter's Trucks locations statewide. Employees whispered, customers speculated. But Daniel Carter wasn't interested in gossip. He was interested in action. Within 48 hours, Daniel held a live-streamed press conference right from the lot where it had all started. Standing in front of rows of gleaming trucks, he looked directly into the cameras without a script, without corporate polish. "My name is Daniel Carter," he began, "and I owe every single customer an apology." He paused, letting the words land. Somewhere along the line, we lost sight of what Carter's Trucks was built on: honesty, hard work, and loyalty. "I take full responsibility." He explained the hidden fees. He admitted to the broken trust. He detailed the full refund process. No spin, no PR cover-up, just truth. And then he made a promise. From today forward, Carter's Trucks will lead the industry, not just in sales but in integrity. The reaction was swift. Customers flooded the company's phone lines, not with complaints, but with support. News outlets picked up the story. CEO takes accountability, launches historic refund program, read one headline. Competitors mocked, at first, but as customers returned, loyalty deeper than before, it became clear. Trust was better currency than profit margins. Inside the dealership, Daniel launched a full training overhaul. Every salesperson, manager, and finance officer was required to complete a new certification, the Carter Code of Conduct. It wasn't just about legal compliance. It was about cultural reset. No forced add-ons, no hidden fees. Every optional service clearly explained, and always the customer's choice. And standing at the heart of it all, Thomas, the dishwasher-turned-integrity leader, now tasked with auditing sales interactions weekly, not to punish, but to protect. Because Daniel understood now, integrity wasn't a department. It was the engine beneath every sale. And then, something even bigger happened. Former customers who had once left angry came back. A retired veteran walked into the dealership, shook Daniel's hand and said, "You gave me my faith back." A young single mum posted online about how Carter's refunded her hidden fees without her even asking. The dealership didn't just survive the scandal, it became a beacon. Other businesses took notice. Some called it a publicity stunt. Some tried to imitate it. But Daniel knew the truth. It wasn't about fixing a brand. It was about fixing a bond between a business and the people it served. 6 months later, Carter's trucks looked the same on the outside. But inside, everything had changed. Customers were greeted like neighbors. Every contract came with a clear, simple breakdown of costs. No fine print traps, no hidden surprises. And Daniel? He wasn't. Just the CEO tucked away in a corner office. He was present. Every Monday, he visited different locations, walked the lots, shook hands, asked questions, and most importantly, he listened. Thomas's role grew beyond what anyone expected. He wasn't just auditing paperwork. He was mentoring new hires, teaching them not just how to sell, but how to serve. Under his guidance, turnover rates plummeted. Customer satisfaction scores soared. Daniel often found himself watching Thomas from a distance, smiling quietly. A man who had once been invisible, now leading the way forward. One crisp autumn afternoon, Carter's Trucks held its first annual Customer Appreciation Day. Families gathered on the lot, food trucks lined the street, music played. In a small ceremony, Daniel stood on a makeshift stage, holding a plaque. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't gold, just simple words engraved on wood. To those who lead by example, not position. He called Thomas up. The crowd erupted in cheers. Thomas's hands trembled slightly as he took the plaque. He wasn't used to the spotlight, but Daniel leaned in and whispered, "You earned this. Don't ever doubt it." Thomas nodded, eyes misty. After the ceremony, a little girl approached Thomas. She couldn't have been more than 6. She held out a crayon drawing. It showed a man standing tall beside a big shiny truck. Above him, in wobbly, colorful letters, it read, "Thank you for being kind." Thomas knelt down, accepted the drawing with a smile, and tucked it into his jacket pocket like treasure. Daniel watched from a few steps away, his heart full, because he realized then, the trucks they sold would eventually break down, the profits would rise and fall, but the kindness, the trust, those would outlast everything. That night, as Daniel closed up the dealership, he paused at the front doors and looked back. He didn't see trucks, he saw people, stories, second chances. And he smiled, because he knew. The real legacy of Carter's Trucks wasn't written in sales contracts, it was written in hearts. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because true leadership isn't about being seen, it's about seeing others.